James Carafano is vice president of the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank in Washington where he focuses on foreign policy and international studies. He joins us now from Columbus, Ohio, to discuss security concerns. Thanks so much for being with me. Let me just ask you about whether or not Americans should be worried about a copycat attack here at home.
Well, your odds of the average American being killed in a terrorist attack are, well, the average American is more likely to be struck by a meteorite than killed in a terrorist attack. So your odds are almost infinitesimally, impossibly low. Having said that, doesn't mean that terrorism isn't significant. Terrorism is about terror. It's not about how many people you kill. It's about demonstrating vulnerabilities. So people that just dismiss the numbers because they say, oh, well, more people die in a car accident or get shot, what's the big deal? It is a big deal because it's a threat to the political system. It's a threat to our safety and security. So we should be concerned about it, although we as individuals are, to be honest, very unlikely to be victims.
So given what you just said, what sort of additional security measures you think are appropriate to try to deter an attack like this?
Right. So I think there's two things. The first thing I would say absolutely is it's stupid to try to child-proof America. I mean, no matter what you do, somebody is going to find something else to kill. I mean, so I could take a cinder block and drop it off an overpass and kill a school bus full of kids. Are we going to ban overpasses and cinder blocks and school buses? So the notion of perfect safety is kind of dumb. And the notion that because something's vulnerable, it's risky is also wrong. There's actually a number of factors that go into risk. So I would say two things. Is number one, the best way to reduce the risk of a terrorist attack on innocent Americans in a shopping mall or a movie theater or an airport is to get the terrorists. And so that's going out, good counterterrorism operations, good intelligence sharing, proactive operations, absolutely proven to be the most effective. There have been 85 plus terrorist plots aimed at the United States since 9/11. The overwhelming number of them have been stopped, and they were stopped because law enforcement went out and did their job. On the other side, okay, look, you do want to not make life easy for the terrorists, and so you want to have the capacity when you feel the need to kind of dial things up and down. So having interim measures that between turning something into a Fort Knox and just being open are helpful. So, for example, we have air marshals. So you have an option if you're concerned about a flight. You have a choice between doing nothing or shutting the flight down. So having the capacity to kind of ratchet these things up based on intelligence and intel is helpful, it's useful, it kind of makes life harder for the terrorists. But the notion of some kind of permanent security at mass transit or some of these other things, it's really just silliness. To be honest with you, most of the security that we do at the airport now is theater. And if somebody says, well, let's move the perimeter out, that's just going to add another act to the play. It's not really what's stopping the terrorists.
What about people who point to an attack like the San Bernardino attack, where you have a situation, people are here living in this country legally, and now there is this battle about what else might perhaps be in store or what might be learned with this battle over encryption that we've seen. Law enforcement has said they don't have the tools, all of them, that they need to be able to most effectively fight the threat of terrorism, as long as there are things like encryption in place.
Right. Well, I think there are two separate issues there. Is one, can we make our own community safer? And the answer is absolutely. You often hear this term about lone wolves, no signature, and that's largely not true. Even individuals acting alone often do things which legitimately raise concerns that ought to be investigated. And the see something, say things is actually the right answer. And it's not asking people to be FBI agents or investigators. People misinterpret this. All you do is if you see something that doesn't make sense or is out of place, you report it to a responsible official, and then they figure out whether it's a problem or not. So it's not putting the burden on you as an individual to profile or do anything else. On the other side, yes, we need good law enforcement. But to be honest with you, I think this notion about encryption is way overblown. Yeah, terrorists are using encryption. They're also using a lot of other things. The reality is terrorists are using all the same things we use on the internet and every day. And if we start compromising those things to get after a terrorist, we start impinging on the liberties of individual American citizens. We have a proven track record of being able to find and track down terrorist activities. The notion that somehow this has created a safe space for terrorists that we can't get into or gives them some kind of overwhelming advantage, I think is a bit overblown. And honestly, I think it's an excuse. I don't think it's the incredible high hurdle that people have. Now, it's true that terrorists are using these tools more, but then it's incumbent upon law enforcement to figure out how to combat that.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that police officials here in New York City have said technology is, in a sense, an enabler when it comes to this kind of encryption that they cannot penetrate. That's I think, a very strong verb to use, that technology is enabling some of these terrorists. But let me ask you this. Some people have said on the campaign trail that there should be a temporary ban on Muslim immigrants, particularly from countries with a strong ISIS presence. What do you think of that? And also another candidate, Senator Ted Cruz, saying, what do you think about saying the notion of patrolling Muslim neighborhoods is something that the law enforcement should be looking at in order to try to get at those neighborhoods and communities before they're radicalized?
Yeah, so look, I work at a 501c3. That's a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. We don't comment on campaigns. We don't do campaigns. I don't care about campaigns.
But the idea is contained therein.
And I'm not even sure what people say on campaigns is really what they would implement in policy. But here's what I will say, and this is, and we have so much data to back this up. It's irrefutable. Terrorists are a tiny data set of any population you could possibly name, other than other terrorists. So if you devise a counterterrorism strategy which says, let's go after this group or that group or that group, it's stupid, right? You are literally wasting a lot of time going through a lot of hay to look for a needle. The way you look for a needle is you look for a needle. You don't look for hay. So I understand the frustration and not just on the part of people who are advocating for answers, but on the part of people that want answers. They want something that's simple and they grasp, and you can easily understand that just makes sense. So, something like, well, just stop them, just do it. That's those bumper stickers make sense, but the reality is what best stops terrorist threat aimed at the United States is to have law enforcement go out and look for terrorists. So what's a greater threat is not so much people who are saying, let's ban Muslims, because we're not going to do that. What's actually a greater threat is people are saying, let's not look for problems. Let's not use the word Islamist. Let's not dare to go into a neighborhood. Being afraid to look for terrorists is as big, if not bigger, a threat than people that just want to label everybody that in a certain group as a terrorist. So there's enough wrong on both sides, and maybe you can't explain that in a 30-second soundbite in an interview or in a speech. But the reality is we know what works, and what works is when you go and look for terrorists, you find them and you stop them. We've got a track record of over the 85 plus plots in the United States. Only a handful of those have actually been successful since 9/11. We have an amazing track record of going and finding people and stopping them, but we have to let people do that and let them do that within the law in a way that's completely consistent with our values and our legal system. And it's not going to be, like, I can guarantee it's not going to be 100% successful, but it's going to be successful enough to safeguard average Americans and to make life much harder for the terrorists.
All right, James Carafano, thank you so much for your perspective. Appreciate it.
Thank you.